Hello everyone, this is Mono, and as one of you suggested, today I will be ranking my top 15 Sonic games. Yeah, I know they said top 10, but the more the merrier. I will only be ranking the Sonic games I've played, so if you don't see one on this list that you think would make sense, that's most likely why. Or the more unfortunate reality is that I didn't like it enough that it didn't even break top 15. Sad. My only requirements for games on this list are that I had to play them to some level of completion, so although I haven't completed all of them, I have played all of them enough to know whether I like them or not. I'll be ranking these games from worst to best, with number 15 being the absolute worst, and 1 being my favorite Sonic game. With that out of the way, let's get started. Number 15. Sonic Colors. Okay, in all fairness, I have only ever played the Wii version of Colors, and Colors Ultimate for the Switch. I have not played Colors DS, which I've heard is the superior version of the game, time and time again. Sonic Colors Wii was my first actual Sonic game, and I feel terrible for my child self. I know this ranking may make me an enemy to some of the Sonic fandom, especially on Twitter, but I absolutely hated experiencing this game both times. Nothing about it is pleasant. I don't like only playing as Sonic, I don't like how the wisps work. The only thing I can give the original Colors props on is the visuals and music, and even then, both of those got ruined by Colors Ultimate. This game has zero of the speed you'd expect out of Sonic, and you can't even apply the argument of, well, you get faster when you learn the levels, because of the fucking wisps and all the other platforming BS, including miserable death pits that you'll find are also part of the reason another game I'm gonna bring up is so low on the list. I'll admit, I'm just not that great at platforming, especially in Colors. It is a skill issue, but I feel like the way Sonic controls makes it even worse. He very much has the problem of flying off at a tiny tap of the stick, yet I can simultaneously never get enough jump height without holding the jump button for an absurd amount of time. Overall, Sonic Colors makes me not want to play Sonic games. It's just a frustrating experience that saps out all the fun when I can't stop dying to the stupidest things. Number 14. Sonic the Fighters. Ironically, compared to Colors, I actually like Sonic the Fighters. The only real reason it's so low on the rankings is due to a lack of content. It is an arcade game after all. I also have to say that the Xbox One port wasn't the greatest, with the controls being completely unexplained both in-game and online. I had some fun messing around in it for a bit, getting the achievements, and I do like Honey the Cat. But beyond that, it's just not very notable, and there isn't much content compared to some of the heavier hitters on the list. I also like the models. Cute game. Number 13. Sonic Dash. Honestly, this is another game I don't even dislike, there's just not a lot of content. However, I do have to say that the card update did ruin the fun for me, and I haven't been a regular player since then. The developers have attempted to fix the card problem, because I'm pretty sure next to nobody was playing the game for a good bit after that update. So, I do have to give the game props for having a lot of characters that we don't usually see, but once you've hit like Shadow in terms of progression, it gets really old. Also, side note, Amy has some really weird stuff going on with her underwear in this game. I understand y'all don't want people looking up her skirt, but in that case, why is she animated like that, and why is the camera positioned up her skirt in the first place? Like, was it so hard to just not put the camera like that so it's not a problem in the first place? Like, y'all have her running around in the most giant white undies ever, and for what? Like, it just draws more attention. It's weird, I don't like it. Anyway, number 12, Sonic Runners. Yes, we are still in mobile game hell, but Runners is actually good. And it's a shame the original is gone. There's not a lot I can say about the title, again due to a lack of content, but it really is a neat little game with tons of good music. The soundtrack is truly one of the best. It's a good time passer, although I think I got stuck on one of the power characters' levels because they can't jump high enough in a certain area, and I just haven't figured out what to do about it. The new version isn't too bad either. If you're bored one afternoon, it's worth a shot. Number 11. Sonic Forces. So, my opinion on this game has kind of flip-flopped. It was my first Sonic title after coming back to the fandom, and for what it was, I liked it. I enjoy customizing my character, of course, and I think the wisps were handled a lot better this time around. The visuals are good enough. Some areas are really pretty, but others are a bit bland. The soundtrack overall was not for me, but there are a few exceptions, such as Fading World, Fist Bump, and all of the episode Shadow remixes. I used to be able to listen to Infinite, but after all this time, it's a bit grating, and it just reminds me to do my daily dose of making fun of Infinite for being a pathetic villain. I genuinely don't get this guy. Not because I don't understand him, but because he's like a sopping wet rat. His motivations make little to no sense. I don't hate Infinite, I just like to call him pathetic. But I will say that I think he really needs a second chance in a game that isn't Sonic Forces. Of course, after playing Forces, I went on to play and replay several other Sonic games, so overall I can say that Forces just doesn't offer as much as other games do. The levels are short, they're too easy, and the villain is... yeah. Moving on. Number 10. Sonic Rush. The only reason Sonic Rush isn't lower is because I would have felt bad putting it under the other games I've named so far. I know that, even more than Colors, some people are really going to just absolutely maul at me for ranking Rush low on this list. But Sonic Rush has the exact same issues I had with Colors, if not worse in some cases. Sonic Rush was by far one of the most frustrating, janky Sonic games I've played. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed boosting and the tricks, and I love Blaze as a character so much, but the overall gameplay is seriously not for me. And I do love the concept of the Soul Dimension too. I mean, I have an AU around the Soul Dimension, so this isn't an issue of me hating the story or the characters, it's 100% the gameplay. The original Sonic Rush is not a game that I've ever enjoyed playing. The bosses are very repetitive, there's a lot of death bits that just make me feel punished for trying, and wanting to have any fun with the game. It just wasn't a feel-good experience for me. It often felt like my deaths were trollish at best. I couldn't really learn ways to avoid dying, so I just died the same way over and over again. And again, I'm just not into trying to platform with a speedy character. Nice story, decent graphics, just cannot stand the gameplay. Number 9. Sonic Superstars. Yes, I know. Sonic Rush under Sonic Superstars? Really? When I just talked about not insulting Sonic Rush? Well, the difference here is that, at least for me, Superstars was playable. Mostly. I actually really liked Sonic Superstars, and Trip the Sungazer is one of my favorite characters. She's super fun to play as, especially if you're not doing her story. Beyond the awful glitches, which I genuinely either had the worst luck with, or all of the Superstars glazers were gaslighting me into oblivion, Superstars was pretty fun. I'm not someone who's a classic Sonic fan, so honestly, even breaking top 10 for me is a compliment. I will give credit to the developers for patching a lot of the really bad day one glitches, but there are more that were just never patched. Also, how did they release a Sonic game with bad music? Somehow, nothing from the soundtrack made it into my Sonic playlist, and I used to have TSR songs on my playlist. Besides that, I like the skins, I like playing as Amy a lot, and the multiplayer battle robots were really cool. Although, I will never forgive that god-awful Fang fight that took like 15 minutes to complete. Decent game, I guess. Number 8. Sonic Battle. I genuinely really like Sonic Battle. I don't think I've ever completed it, but I have played it multiple times. It's not all that serious, and I really like the 2D art and sprites, and the controls really aren't bad. It can be a little janky in the battles because of the 2D environment kinda trying to be 3D, but it's still fairly manageable. I like how everyone is characterized in this game pretty well, and playing as a bunch of different characters with their unique abilities is pretty sweet. Battle is a Sonic game I just don't have any particularly negative feelings about. It's fun. Number 7, Team Sonic Racing. Okay, I know TSR is considered a downgrade for a lot of people when it comes to the Sonic car racing games, but I like it. Alongside Sonic Colors, Sega and Sonic All-Stars Racing was one of my first Sonic-related games. When it comes to TSR, the main reasons I like it are the vehicle customization, decent controls, and the boatloads of character interactions we don't really get otherwise. It's so nice seeing characters like Shadow and Blaze having unique dialogue with each other when they hardly get the chance to interact in other forms of Sonic media. Although, I will say that the story is pretty The online mode is completely dead too, but otherwise, it's a really solid game, and I wish it wasn't so dead on arrival. Number 6, Sonic Rush Adventure. Hopefully the people who really don't like when you say Sonic Rush is kinda meh will forgive me when I say Sonic Rush Adventure was pretty good. Sonic Rush Adventure completely redeemed the Rush games for me. It's really fun, and it isn't nearly as punishing as the original. I love that it takes place in the Soul Dimension this time, with Sonic and Tails getting transported there instead of Blaze coming to Sonic's world. Although I haven't finished the game, I really enjoy the water vehicles, and overall I feel like it controls better than the original Rush. The soundtrack is also amazing. Just like Rush, of course, but I'd say it's even better in some respects. Overall, I had a lot of fun with Rush Adventure, and it's far more enjoyable than Sonic Rush was for me. I'd say it's my favorite Sonic game for the DS. Number 5, The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Although this visual novel was just an April Fool's game, I still absolutely adore it. The plot is pretty simple, pretty wholesome, but everything about this game is so freaking charming. I like our protagonist. I like the adorable outfits everyone gets, even if Shadow's only working at Starbucks to get through college. And in the small running sections, the game is super easy to get a hang of, and it even has options for an easier playing experience if you are struggling. It's a very cozy entry to the series, and there's literally nothing negative I could say about it. I'd love to see more lighthearted, smaller games like this in Sonic series. Number 4. We're getting to the real good ones. Sonic Adventure 1. Yes, obviously this is top 5. Who doesn't love Sonic Adventure? It's a super charming game with visuals that hold up relatively well for what it is. Everyone's stories were really nice to play through, besides Big's. Honestly, that's really the only reason I can't make SA1 top 3. Because I never got past the fishing section, meaning I never got to finish SA1. However, I loved everything else about it. The Chow Garden is pretty good, the soundtrack is awesome, of course, and the levels are pretty neat, even when pinball was involved. I really appreciate that the required pinball was relatively simple to complete, considering that isn't always the case, even in newer games. Cough cough, Sonic Frontiers. Alright, number 3. Hey, we're in the top 3. Sonic Unleashed. I may not have completed Unleashed yet, but this absolutely gorgeous game is by far one of the most enjoyable Sonic experiences I've ever had. Although the Werehog gameplay is controversial, I quite like it. I'm a Werehog enjoyer, and I'm proud of it. If anything, I liked the Werehog stages better than the regular Sonic stages in this game. Personally, I was having some issues with the controls in the day stages, so I'm currently stuck because I can't beat certain day stages with me barely passing Dragon Road with assistance. But all of the Werehog stages have been a welcome challenge. I'm a huge fan of combat in my Sonic games, and the Werehog isn't fully incapable of going fast either. I liked the more puzzle and combat-oriented gameplay, and although Chip is a bit cringe, he's okay. The game's visual style also holds up amazingly. Unleashed could have been released today, and I still would consider the graphics on par with, if not better than some modern releases. However, my game did have an insane frame drop when Eggman pulled out this giant, hyper-detailed 6 million triangle sandwich, so maybe Unleashed is still a bit ahead of its time, considering I was literally playing on the generation of console after the 360. Number 2. Sonic Frontiers. I mean, it's Frontiers, it had to be up here somewhere. Sonic Frontiers was this close to being number 1, with exceptional boss fights, several different combat skills you could unlock, amazing vocal tracks, and of course, being our first open-world Sonic game. Update 3 added even more to my enjoyment of Frontiers, bringing in Tails, Knuckles, and Amy as playable characters, a huge boost to any Sonic game. Although, unfortunately, there are some problems with how the other 3 control, and you can't really see them outside of their cyberspace forms. But once I got used to the janky controls, they were pretty nice to play as. Personally, I like playing as Knuckles and Amy the best. Plus, I can't really knock free updates to Frontiers after release. Update 3 also gave us the better version of I'm Here, which made me super happy considering the original was pretty underwhelming and managed to bring down the mood of the final Titan fight significantly. Then again, the end didn't have a very memorable theme either, so yeah. I also loved going around and collecting all the different songs from past games, allowing me to listen to them as I ran around the islands. Overall, Frontiers was a great step for Sonic, and it makes me even more excited knowing all the amazing things we've seen from Sonic X Shadow Generation so far. Speaking of Shadow Generations, there's a pretty solid chance it'll dethrone my number 1 soon. Sonic Adventure 2. I mean, it's SA2. Do I really need to explain it? Of course, SA2 introduced my 2 all-time favorite characters to the Sonic series, Shadow the Hedgehog and Rouge the Bat. The visual style of SA2 is nothing less than extremely inspirational to me. Although the graphics don't hold up as well as Unleashed, I really love them specifically for their vibe. I like to think that if I was decent at 3D modeling and if I had the skill set to make my own game, SA2 would be my primary source of inspiration. I know the different playstyles aren't for everyone, and personally I would have liked if Tails exited the mech in areas that weren't just the Chow Garden, but I really enjoyed all of them overall. The soundtrack is my second favorite of all time, only falling behind Shadow the Hedgehog, and the Chow Garden is even better than SA1's. The story of SA2 is pretty sweet too, being much more serious even to the point of seeing the heroes come together with Eggman to save the world. I find that vanilla SA2 still holds up decently even to this day. If you're looking for an even better experience, I like to use the mod manager to eliminate the need for lives like in the modern games, fix the Emerald radar to track all 3 shards, and sometimes I'll also speed up the time in the Chow Gardens a little bit just because I can get impatient. But with that being said, those were my top 15 Sonic games, at least the ones I've gotten around to playing. This list is definitely guaranteed to change though, once Shadow Generations releases, and once I get around to playing other big titles like Sonic 06 and Sonic Heroes. But until then, Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed the art and/or my commentary, feel free to like and subscribe. I can't believe I'm saying this because literally only one video ago, I was aiming for 500 subscribers, but we're currently on the road to 1,000. I really can't thank everyone enough for all the support. I'm just taken aback at how quickly everything is happening here on the channel. And all I can really say is thank you. And if you're interested in getting one of my art pieces for yourself, feel free to check out my Ko-Fi commissions in the description. I also post all of these Speedpaint pieces in full on my Twitter, which you can find down below as well. Okay, bye-bye now.